distinguished guests on the dais, excellencies, business leaders, wish you all a very good morning and welcome you all to this very vibrant city, vibrant state, and the beautiful land of India. All of you who have collected here to discuss India's and world's approach towards the pressing problems that all of us are facing through this forum of G20, I'm very sure that the deliberations will come out, will lead all of us to some very good outcomes. In my brief 15 to 17 minutes presentation, I would like to share 4 approaches that India has taken under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi Ji, which could perhaps be good approaches to share among all of us and see whether many of those approaches could today help us solve some of the pressing problems that we are facing. The first is approach towards economic management. Second is approach towards digital economy. Third is our approach to regulation in digital economy. And fourth is the approach towards new technologies. These are the 4 approaches I would very briefly touch in this presentation. In this very turbulent period, over last almost 2 years now, the world has seen something which it has not seen for more than a century. And our response has been as per our textbooks in many geographies, many large economies. Contrasting that with the approach that India's Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi Ji took is something which I thought it's good for all of us to think about and see whether some of these lessons are relevant for all of us. As the pandemic struck and the whole world kind of stopped, the economies came to a grinding halt, the classic response in many economies was to give the classical fiscal stimulus in which the checks were sent in many economies and directly money was transferred to the consumers. The hope was that consumption will pick up and that will lead to the economic revival. And yes, that happened. But simultaneously, the quantity of fiscal stimulus and combined that with the monetary stimulus created a situation where the balance sheets of Fed, the European Central Bank, Japanese Bank, many of the large, richer economies, the balance sheets have humongously grown, and that has really brought inflation which was unprecedented, unheard of throughout the world. What happens in some of the developed countries has repercussions all over the world, so it's relevant for all of us. In contrast, our Prime Minister took an approach where very focused consumption and large part of the fiscal space was allocated towards investment. So this combination of focused consumption, which was maximum targeted towards the vulnerable sections of the society, and investment, which basically gave a long-term productivity boost to the economy, this has really brought in a situation where today India is having a good, robust 6.9% growth, 7% growth, and very moderate inflation. Indian economy, with its challenges of importing energy, we traditionally have had anywhere between 4.5% to 7% as a run rate of inflation. So with that as the run rate, today we are at around 5.8 as the latest print, so which is a very good moderate inflation. So creating robust growth along with moderate inflation, that is the outcome of this approach. Can this approach give us new insights for managing similar situations anywhere else in the world? Yes, it can. That's why I'm sharing it with you. The results, if you look at 4 or 5 key parameters, the quarterly private investment in the country was somewhere around 180 billion US pre-COVID. Now that has come to 240 billion US quarterly investment. So that is a significant jump. Credit offtake has increased to practically multi-year high to almost 17% year on year. That's again a very good jump. The investment as a percentage of GDP has grown from 26% to 31%. That again is a good structural change in the economy. Capacity utilization, there are many business friends I know personally here. Capacity utilization in the Indian industrial sector has increased from anywhere 60-65% to 75 to 80%. So that is spurring a new capex cycle. Employment, formal employment, which is measured by our provident fund, the net formal investment, net formal employment is now almost 1.5 million net addition every month. So these are hard data, these are specific data points. Can the economists associated with this group use this and see whether the classical fiscal stimulus of sending out checks versus a combination of consumption and investment, what is the right way forward? Because this is not the last time we are facing a crisis. Crises will come. How we approach them will determine our future. The second approach is about digitalization. We all know, and all of us are approaching, all the countries are approaching digitalization in our own ways. We in India had a great advantage of a very robust, very vibrant software industry. Our Prime Minister took an approach, can we build a system, a digital ecosystem in which the monopoly of any big tech doesn't come in? Can the digital system be very inclusive? Can it create opportunities for multiple stakeholders? With that as the fundamental construct in his mind, he launched the Digital India program in 2015. I was sitting in the audience when that program was launched. And when I heard that vision, I could foresee that in 5 years, 6 years from now, India's example will be given everywhere in the world. And what was that approach? That approach was that create a public-private partnership. And what is that public-private partnership? The public-private partnership was using public funds, let us create certain platforms which are robust platforms, sector-specific, then let everybody else join those platforms and build solutions. I'll give 2 examples. The first example is of payment system. Using public funds, a payment platform was created. Everybody else was invited to join. I'm repeating this sentence 3 times so that the point is clearly brought in. So on this platform, the banks joined, insurance companies joined, practically every e-commerce joined, hundreds of startups joined, and 1.2 billion people joined. So that's the power of a platform. That's the power of a public-private partnership. And the resultant, again, numbers should be used to measure. We are in a business B20 meeting. Numbers speak for themselves. In the month of December, on an annualized, December which has just gone by, December 22, on an annualized basis, the digital payment transactions in India are 1.5 trillion US dollars. That's huge. That's more than many other countries. I wouldn't like to take any names here. Again, giving the second example of how a public-private partnership was created. With public funds, we created the platform called Co-Win to face the pandemic challenge. Multiple agencies joined it, the vaccine providers, the state governments, the clinics, hospitals, and once again 1.2 billion people joined this platform. And as a result, a vaccination program where 2 billion doses were administered, the logistics of that many vaccine doses was managed, the scheduling of vaccine doses, the certificate of vaccination, everything was done using that public-private partnership, that digital public platform. So the approach that Prime Minister took was very different from approach many other countries have taken. The approach is to use public funds to create a robust platform and let everybody join that platform. This reduces the concentration, this reduces the monopoly, this democratizes the entire digital benefits. It is very inclusive approach, it is very democratic approach, and it's very sustainable long-term approach. I will not repeat the sentence fourth time. Thank you for being so patient. This approach has led us to what we call India Stack. You might have heard this name quite often. In 1.5 sentence, India Stack is a set of open APIs and public digital goods. Individually, they are very powerful in themselves, but when you put all of them together, you can create robust digital solutions which can solve population scale problems. That is India Stack. And our Honorable Prime Minister has authorized us to say that this India Stack is today offered to the entire world as our contribution, as India's contribution in a spirit of public service. Please feel free to use it. Feel free to approach. We have a proper website and everything is there. And our B20 Secretariat will be very glad to assist you in this. Thank you. And third approach is towards regulation. Digital economy has its own very complex challenges. Regulation that we saw in the industrial age or in the age preceding this digital age was built around certain principles which, in our opinion, do not hold true in the digital economy. For example, I'll take 2 examples here. The right of privacy, protecting personal data, the approach that the world was following was the GDPR approach. It's a great, very robust, time-tested, tested across multiple economies over many years now. What has been the experience? The experience has been, it's great when you are looking at purely at the protection of personal data. It's very good, very strong, very robust. On the opposite side, on the other hand, it has a huge pushback against innovation. So can we create a template which is very good for individual rights, very good for the society that we are living in, very important from the perspectives that we have in today's society. Simultaneously, it gives a big boost to innovation. It's not an easy task to do because every step that we take on one side will be detrimental to other side. And if we try to promote this, this goes down, and if we promote this, this goes down. So again, our Prime Minister took a very pragmatic approach. His point was that India today is the 3rd largest innovation ecosystem, where we have more than 100 unicorns, more than 84,000 registered startups. Can we create a system in which individual rights, society's needs, and innovation requirements. All the three can be managed. Why I said society's needs is, we in India are a family-oriented society. Many Western democracies are individual-oriented societies. We are very, very family-oriented society. So can we have our societal imperatives, individual imperatives and innovation requirements, balance the three together and create a law? And that's how we came up with the data, we call it Digital Personal Data Protection Bill. It is uploaded, and so far we have interacted with multiple internal and external shareholders, stakeholders, and the feedback has been excellent. Recently at Davos, some of the very big thought leaders, very important thought leaders, please don't mind if I sound a bit, okay, I'll not say it. Let me not say it. But without taking any names, one of the major thought leaders said that yes, this is the right template which world should now adopt. So that is the kind of appreciation this bill is now getting. The second, again, a similar bill was about telecom, because telecom is today the gateway to digital world. I'm running against the promised time. My apologies for that. Again, we have followed a very pragmatic approach under Prime Minister's leadership. He has given a very clear mandate that everything, implementation of the law should be digital. All dispute resolution should be online. So the approach has to be technology agnostic. Approach has to be something which will hold good for at least as technology keeps changing, we should not be going back to the parliament again and again. So that is the approach towards regulation, which is a balance of society and individual rights with innovation, with equal emphasis to the both. The fourth point was approach to new technologies. Again, Prime Minister's mandate is whatever new technologies that we develop, we have to look at a public-private partnership approach. Because, as we all know from the business world, there are certain risks which are best taken by the government, and there are certain risks which are best allocated to the private sector. How pragmatic is the risk allocation will determine the success of the project. If the project is skewed towards, if the risks are skewed towards the private sector, quite likely that private sector partner will become bankrupt after a while. So no point in creating structures where government takes off every responsibility or private sector takes off every responsibility and put the entire responsibility on the other partner. So with that approach and that mandate, we took up many projects in the country. Prime Minister has actually laid out a very clear technological roadmap in all the ministries that we work, and each of these is created on a public-private partnership approach. I'll just give one example. We decided to develop our own 4G, 5G technology stack. It's not an easy task. There are only 5 countries in the world who have end-to-end 4G, 5G technology stack, telecom technology stack. When Prime Minister gave us this task in 2020, it was considered as maybe it will take many years, maybe it may not happen. But the engineers and our private and public partnership approach, that has given us a solution where the core was developed, invested by the public sector, public funds, and everything else sitting on it, the radio network, the billing system, everything else comes from the private partners. Again, that philosophy of having public investment with private components to it, that balances the risk. And today the solution is so robust that recently, initially it was tested for 1 million simultaneous calls, then it was tested for 5 million simultaneous calls, and very recently it has been successfully tested for 10 million simultaneous calls. And in this entire 2023, we'll be rolling it out on about 50 to 70,000 towers, sites, and then 2024 we'll be offering it to the world. So these are the four approaches I thought might be useful for all of us to think about and see what are the lessons we have for the world. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Thank you so much.